Good. Hello? Wow. Ah! Oh, let me mute that.
You may not want to walk near your computer.
I'll be very quiet. There we go.
So this may seem like a foolish question. You have like a screensaver or a timer on your screen there to turn off this time?
Ah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, projectors.
Yeah, I always forget that. Where's my mouse cursor? That's weird. Oh my.
You don't need a stick vehicle.
That's not good. I'm gonna disconnect that for a moment. Come on. Come on. That's not good. Oh, come on. Okay, there's my mouse cursor.
Looks pretty shiny for something you might have picked up.
Yeah, it was impressive. All of the dust and scuffs and stuff have been inflicted since I received it. Which is kind of sad.
The Intel side,
Yeah, kind of peeled that up off here with my palm is pushing it around. Leave all of the.
It's not really borrow it for the.
Clicker.
I think what I'll do once I get the Kestrel 3 to a point where it'll do presentation, I'll have like some capacitive switches so I can just hand those.
Ah.
They actually have devices.
Oh yeah, that's not good.
Usually
Am I doing on time? Oh, 10.
if you're getting close to it, that will control the screen. Yes, that's the Microsoft
Connect. Yeah.
That's the Connect system scanner.
Yeah.
That's not here or maybe your Kestrel is fast enough.
FPGA, man. Like,
Yeah.
the CPU speed may not be fast enough, but raw logic is.
Well, yeah. It's still going to process video image.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun processing. Are you?
Yeah, I can start. I guess we're.
We're broadcasting.
Oh, we are. Oh, well. Gosh.
Schedule start time is in 5 minutes.
Oh.
But we're
Oh.
10 minutes after. Scheduled start time is posted on 10:15. What is that? You don't read the schedule. it's autonomous. It's not. Pete Petty in Massachusetts is doing stuff at Winchester High School. So they came out, and I tried to get them. Also, Brad, to stop in. My niece works at ILM at the Presidio, and so she had set up a tour for them, but they were so wiped out. Thursday night was the award ceremony, and they were wiped out, and so they didn't go to that. But everybody got to Twitter, gave them a tour.
Oh, very cool.
And what they were most impressed by the exercise facilities, the food, the all the different perks.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, you hit me at a terrible time. It's like there's this guy who came here for this three block stretch of days, and I had a personal conflict the first day. It was like the second day. Okay, now we're gonna work here. It's like, yeah, so it was like. Oh. But no, one thing I got to do is there's people come and ask for tours, and like there's a guy that runs a thing where you can go and like get introduced to like here's cool places to take people to see and sort of what the
yes
because I'm terrible at that. I'm like where should I take you? And it's like right. Well, you sort of because you sort of lose perspective on what's neat to.
Stretching a little bit, but so
I know somebody at Google.
Oh yeah, no, I pushed the. I'm fiddling with the.
You can start anytime.
I can start anytime.
Start 5 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. Well then. Okay.
Now you tell.
Now you tell me.
I did 5 minutes ago. Hey, I already started.
Okay then. Haiku Monthly. All right. Breaking news. What's new in haikus this time? Do not adjust your TV. Well, someone has, our friend Ivan Q has made a TV haiku. Snow and everything, yeah. And you'll notice it kind of oscillates between circular and it's a cute
So
thing.
is this offline IQ or IQ?
This is
or
this is embedded in the slides. So actually, when I loaded the slide deck, it downloaded a bunch of the haikus into the page. Actually, I'll talk a little bit at the end maybe about how I did the slides here generally. But yeah, so this is I'm using this framework called which is Reveal. Yeah. Not to be and later, confusingly later in the presentation, I'm using a different framework. I think it's Impact.js. They each had features that I wanted for this talk, and unfortunately, they don't overlap. So, anyhow, so coming to the theaters, we have the Martian, but we have a Martian haiku, and yeah, I'm excited that the Martian is coming. Let folks read.
okay, so what's the text?
Yeah. Well, the context was just that there's a haiku up that's this. So anyhow,
the book is amazing.
Yeah. So and they're making a movie of it. So fun times. Meanwhile, back on Earth, there was also the earlier Earth version. Anyhow, so the big thing this last couple months was haikus learning to spin. Somebody put up a recipe for how to make haikus spin, and it seems there have been variations of a lot of pre-existing haikus added with spinning at the front. And so people took a number of them and made them spin for no apparent reason. Yep. And spin. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But now it spins.
I'm going down the freeway on my unicycle.
Yeah. And the other fun one was somebody did a variation on my old streak haiku. Made it do something like that. Not sure. That was the other newcomer this month. Oh yeah, and there was that, which makes no sense to me other than as a tie.
Sure. We'll take it.
Okay. Anyways, the other big thing this month was waves and waves of spam. So spam for me has become sort of an eternal struggle. And the problem is that at first there was just a trickle. You know, there were a ton of haikus. Every few, you know, every week or so there'd be a few haikus posted with strange names like that. But more recently there has been just a flood where they have very verbose texts, you know, with phrases like this in them. But I can make no sense of why someone would feel that they need to post haikus containing texts of this sort. But anyways, if you look at the background traffic here, I mean, there's this daily pulse of you know, throughout the day, folks posting the haikus, and it's gotten worse over time. There's been these weird little drop-offs, and I don't know if that's been in response to the filtering that I put up. But I mean, so you get these. So you can't see this here, but it's, you know, just random. And they must be taking random snippets of text from the internet.
Yes.
You know, and it's just, you know, all kinds of you know, strange things in here.
It comes in as the code that gets
Yes,
posted?
they post code, and I think what they're trying to do is to. They oftentimes have embedded links, and I'm assuming that some of these must lead to spammy things. But the weird thing is sometimes there are no links. Sometimes it's just you know, arbitrary stuff.
In general, those links lead to malware.
Yeah, so I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
That's distinct from spam.
Yes, I suppose. Yes, they may even be phishing, actually. Yeah. So it's amazing that I don't know where they get their corpus of stuff, but it's quite some colorful things in them. You know, some of them look like news reports. Anyway, so here's where I stand at filtering all this stuff out so it doesn't overwhelm the site. And unfortunately, a few times it has, and usually my users will, you know, post haikus to, you know, eagerly hope that I will go clean up the spam and improve the filter. So I started with just, you know, anything that has href or HTTP or HTTPS in it, filtering those out. I added a filter for words that are longer than 30 characters. So that's what the spam RE is in the code or the title or the author. And then more recently, I finally caved and I've added the requirement that they at least have 3 words from the 4th dictionary or numbers. And that seems to be enough to keep it at bay. So you have to know at least 3 4th words.
Wow. Because this is Python, right?
This is Python, yes.
I wonder if there's a regular expression that can be cobbled together that will analyze the fourth code.
Well, I mean, I think that, so I had tried sort of this very simple regex that I'm using here. Actually, the spam RE is a regex object that I initialized somewhere else, and it's sort of filtering for words over a certain size, but some more general thing that's saying, you know, one of these words or something might work. Haiku word count inside is actually, initially I was like, oh gosh, now I got to have my Python code a collection of what are all the valid words. But then I remembered, oh wait, I have a glossary for all the haiku words. And so I already had this sort of database of here are all the words. And so I just had to add in the words and the numbers. And so I'm a little concerned that I've, you know, veered too far in the other direction, in the sense that I'm a little nervous that if I did something that, you know, subtly rejected a haiku that was valid, that it, you know, because currently what I'm doing is just throwing it on the floor. I do log it actually, and that's actually did I turn any the logs? Oh, I guess that is from the logs. So that, like, these here are log entries actually. So I record rejected, and notice the name is one of these terrible names. So this one would have been filtered out just on the basis of the name, although they may have shortened the names just slightly to fall below the threshold that I set for words. In a way, I'm tempted to actually set the threshold a little bit lower. Most of my users seem to be these Russian demo sceners where their goal is to make it as few bytes as possible. So they like to use one-letter words in all their stuff. Yeah. So, but anyways, and so I marked that it's spam, and I record them all, so I at least for some short time have a record of them. But there's initially, you know, it was just a burst of maybe 20 of them, you know, maybe in 2 weeks or something. And now there's just a constant, you know, pounding of them. Like you can go just live, sit there, wait for a minute. Oh, there's another one. And they've discovered me apparently. It's just horrible. So. Yeah, I wish I had some. This is sort of like, okay, I happen to know what my input looks like, but I wish I had some more sort of, you know, well thought out thing.
Well, how about this? How about, so you have to parse the code or lexicode it, basically, in order to find out what your colon definitions and such are. You need an initial dictionary to start with in order to do that. How about just rejecting any code that has like an undefined word in it, because that by definition is invalid code.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I should. What's keeping me from doing that is the simple fact that the server side is Python and the client side is JavaScript. So I have my JavaScript implementation of all of the actual parsing of it, but in the Python side, I just have this dumb glossary of stuff. So what I should really do is, if I had a duplicate implementation that knew how to properly parse it. And it's fourth, and it's a very narrow subset of fourth. There's not like a whole lot of code to do. So I think that's what I'll do next if they somehow find their way around this. Although so far this has been keeping the flood at bay. But.
Have you considered writing a grammar for haiku fourth, so that if something comes in that doesn't quite fit that, you say, well, this is right, you're out of here.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's similar to Sam's suggestion. I mean, if I actually parsed it on the server side, the trouble is that right now, to display it, that gets done all on in your browser. What the server is doing is just recording the haiku, and it doesn't actually have enough knowledge of even fourth to decode it.
That would probably help.
I think it would too. Yeah, it's just a matter of the effort involved to do that on a second implementation in Python.
Yeah, because one thing Python does have is right parsing.
Yeah. But I mean, if I wanted to get real fancy, I suppose I've occasionally wondered if I did some sort of, Bayesian, filter or something that was fancier. But honestly, it would be hard to tell real. I think in a way, with real code, you have the ability to sort of say, is this real? Although I am a little worried about like, comments and whatnot. They do occasionally put interesting comments, and I'm sad about. Oh yeah, go ahead.
This statement, if it's true, then you have a span.
Yes.
Okay.
And one thing I'm a little bit sad about is that I'm rejecting stuff with links in it. I'd almost rather not, because in some cases the demo senders have actually put in links to interesting things, and it's not that I particularly want to ban people redirecting somewhere else. I just don't want the random junk. So I've occasionally thought maybe I could take these out now that I have this count, but I haven't really played around with it enough. For the time being, I've been just sort of, I got to do something to deal with the onslaught. Now that I've got time to think about it, I should probably plan ahead and say, okay, when they hit up the voltage even more, what do I do next to keep it? What I really would loathe to do is have people log in or something. I mean, then you could have some, you could restrict that way, but I like people being able to post without a login.
Just doing it straight is really nice for the actual beginner people.
Yeah. No, I'd hate to lose that ability. So I'll definitely look for something better if I can possibly. I think if it comes down to it, what I'll do is actually just make sure that the program actually parses and maybe even like stays balanced and has only the 3 or 4 things in the stack. But yeah, because what I'm a little afraid they'll do is they'll figure out, oh, well, I just have to pepper this with enough of these fourth words and put the other thing in a comment, and then. But I'm not sure, honestly, how much they're adapting specifically to me. I mean, for one thing, the fact that they're putting these junk names in seems kind of odd. So it's probably somebody with some general bag of tricks, but I don't know. And I'm assuming it's got to be one or a small number of spammers. There seem to be a couple of different variants, but they're pretty close. So I'm betting it's all one entity. Anyhow, so this for this month I've got an in-depth special: Trees of Light, tracing the origins of ancient haiku. So the motivating idea on here is to figure out where did we all come from, and in particular, where did all these haikus I've got come from? And all this started from the fact that I let people create derived work, which was something that I didn't actually put a lot of thought into at the time. I was just looking for a way to make it easier to mutate stuff, and lo and behold, people really latched onto this, and this is how a lot of these haikus have actually come into existence. People click on the button, they make some modification, and then they submit it again. But I didn't do one crucial thing with this. Because it was sort of an afterthought, I actually added it after I had most of the original site. I didn't keep any record of what was derived from what. And so, unfortunately, a lot of this is lost stuff. But I've started tracking it now. So from now on, you track it. And so I'm able to display things like this, where you'll show down at the bottom of the haiku that it's based on some prior haiku. And but what about all the ancient ones? What about the ones the genealogy of it? Exactly. Because I got this big corpus of haikus. I want to know where they came from. So what if I could trace their ancestry and decide who inherits from who, and build a tree? And so how can I do that? Well, so I want to determine family relationships based on the data that I've got. So I need some measure of relatedness. And then I can use another piece of information that I do have, which is I have the date that the haiku was submitted. And so I can require that parents have to exist before their children. And then I basically pick the closest match, and that's potentially your parent. Although I do have to take into account that some haikus are orphans, and so I need some threshold to say, okay, it's close to this one, but if it's too far away, even if it's the best match, that they're not related. So what do I use for measure for relatedness? Well, there's this Levenshtein distance, which is it's a sort of a fancy method for measuring distance. It's really just a measure of like how many insertions, deletions, or replacements. But I'm lazy, and I had to do this on the server side, so I'm using Python difflib, and difflib has something that is approximately Levenshtein distance, but it's a little different, is my understanding. But I haven't actually delved into the internet, so this is what I'm using, and it's a sequence matcher that's in a library that's used for diffing, and it actually comes up with some kind of a ratio. And I gave this a try, and it produced reasonable results. It's something approximately like the number of substitutions, but it's somehow turned into a ratio, so it's scaled independent of the number, the length of the string. So that's what I use for measure. But then the question is, okay, what text do I feed to it? So I definitely will use the source code, because if somebody has modified one piece of the source code, that's something I want to make sure I sort of give credit for, so to speak. But I've also included the title, because I found that a number of the haikus are, the title does actually carry a little bit of information, and it's that extra little bit of a nudge when you've got two things that look pretty much the same. One person took it in another direction, one person took it in this direction. So I used the title. I decided not to use the author, because while there is actually a lot of connectedness, people often derive from their own works. I didn't want to bias things in the direction of assuming that, oh, well, clearly this, because it's this author, it must come from here. Some early simple experiments I did suggested that wasn't effective. So this is actually let me go and trace them. So here's this XOR tunnel color, and looks like this. Cool, neat, and fancy, by Anonymous. But it actually has a lot of textual similarity to this XOR tunnel shorter, also by Mr. Anonymous, which looks like this. It will load. Which in turn seems to be derived from this XOR tunnel dark by Boomlind here. And you'll notice there's some spacing added in there at this point. And it's pretty much the same haiku, as far as I can tell, that somebody just twiddled the formatting. And then from that one, there's this XOR tunnel, which seems to be the same thing, but you'll notice it's missing the lighting, and so it's just the bare the pattern. And then lo and behold, that seems to be derived from this XOR texture, which because it has this common block of texture, which is just the pattern that's on the surface of the walls. And intriguingly, that is in turn derived from this Sierpinski, which is a fractal, because it's Boomlind here seems to have built up a small set of words that he uses to build some of these haikus. And so he must have started from this particular fractal. And so that's as far back as the height of that one goes. So there's a number of possibilities. I can rank based on use. One of the issues is that right now there's this mechanism for voting. I don't know how many people have even noticed. You can say I like it, I don't like it. But because there's no login, I'm not actually doing much of anything to enforce it. I'm surprised no one has particularly spammed it. I mean, there are certainly people who bumped up their own haikus and whatnot. But what this lets me do is say, well, you know, I can sort of, in a crudely page rank-like way, say, hey, if lots of people are derived from this haiku, it must be a significant haiku. Although that actually kind of goes backwards because, of course, you know, some, in this case, that Sierpinski, while influential, is sort of less interesting in the tunnel. So, the other thing I can do is, now that I'm recording derived works, I can run this in retrospect and see if someone is actually cheating, if they're cutting and pasting the text, but making sure not to have done it when clicking on derived work, to see if that's an issue. Because while I can do these kinds of runs to detect parents, it's something I have to do as an offline sweep. I don't want to do it continuously every time someone submits a haiku. But I can go back in retrospect and see if they're cheating, see if I need to add some better mechanism for detecting derived works. And the cool thing is that I can show the tree and take a look at it. So now let's tour the tree. So it's not really a tree, first of all. Oop, and this is gonna. Let's see. So here's so I've got this. By the way, I just switched slide frameworks here. This is Impact.js. And the thing about so Reveal, which is the first one, it's very convenient for throwing together slide decks. You just have a little bit of HTML and then it injects a bunch of style sheets into it and does magic things. Impact is neat in that it lets you navigate around in a large virtual space. And so what I've got here is a giant SVG file that I ran through GraphViz. And I want to pan around it to look at it with you all here. And so being able to navigate around it numerically. So what I did was I found a bunch of interesting places to talk about and recorded them in the slide framework, and then it's panning around in this big space. Normally when you use this slide framework, you can have different stuff that fades in and out, but I've not used that here. And the reason I actually considered briefly, let me do the other slides in this form. The key thing this framework is missing is the ability to have an easy way to prepare the text of a page that you want to load, but don't actually cause it to load. And so if you imagine all of those haikus that I just showed, if I had them all sort of running simultaneously, it would bring the machine to its knees. So the other framework had the virtue of giving me a simple way to say, load this, but don't load it until I'm like 1 or 2 slides ahead so that it transitions in. And even then, you'll notice that it didn't transition as smoothly as it might have otherwise. So anyways, so for some of these, the relationship is very simple. Somebody put in 7 sins, and there's 7 sins redux. And a similar story with a whole bunch of these. But, let's see if the clicker, clicker's not going to work. Okay. That's the one thing I just forgot to test with the slide framework is, does the clicker work with it? Apparently not. Okay. Okay. That's not doing read. Okay. This will teach me to use a new slide framework. Oh, you're kidding. Let's see. Let's give it one more try. Okay. Well, it's good for you that it does this. Okay. All right. Well, I'll do it like this. All right. So for some reason it doesn't. Does it? Oh, and now it works with the clicker, just not full screen. That's weird. Okay. So there's some of them that have more. You know, here you've got some actual sort of tree going on, but then you get into you know, there's others. You have .yours, .rainbow dash, .rainbow dash anim. So people, you know, often start with a non-animated haiku and then make it animated. And And actually, let's see, I'm going to get down to some of these. So a lot of these up at the top here are the sort of singletons. Here's a trail that we actually traced in the last episode of Haiku Monthly. Here's the clock, which goes to circular clock, which in turn goes to circular clock redux with rotation. So remember, there was that, we had a clock, and actually, here's what we can do. There's one other feature I just added, like last night, to the haikus, which prompted by the desire for using it in this presentation. I have a search box. Finally, it's unfortunately not all that I would like it to be, because it is searching the prefix of the author or the title, and it's case sensitive. So the reason for this is just how the data is stored. If I wanted to do something fancier, I'd need to do a sweep through what's in the database. And so, to give you a sense of what we're talking about here, here's clock by Snail, and from that is derived circular clock, which we get a circular clock, circular. The circular clock, and in turn from that is circular clock redux. And if you'll remember last time, we actually traced through this, but I was doing this sort of by my own reasoning about it. I had plucked those out and added to my slide deck, whereas here we've got some actual evidence that they're related. Let's see, we get, sometimes there's patterns of tessellation 1, 2, and 3 by the same author, where they're clearly, sort of, oh, let me change it a little more, this sort of thing. And then, there's some that are longer here. Here's one that's interesting. We get Super Mario leading to Jumping Super Mario, leading to Jumping Mario, leading to Luigi, leading to more Luigis. So if we pull it up here, we can, here's Super Mario. And somebody initially did this, but apparently someone else, oops, what was the name? Jumping. I thought I searched for jumping. That doesn't say good things about my search. Oh, all right. Anyways, I'll have to look into that later. And then someone else, of course, produced a derived work and turned it into Luigi and changed the way that it jumps so that it kind of goes. Yeah. Well, it's a little. It's in Mario Brothers. There's the two brothers, and Luigi is Mario's brother. So, yeah, and he's just Mario with a different set of 3 colors. So, anyhow, moving along. Let's see what else we have here. We've got a number of. So here's some Fourier series and Fourier series laser and flash, and so there's a whole bunch of interesting things. I'm not sure how visible this is all from here. It's interesting that some of them are fairly shallow, but others are deeper. Here's so with the signal flags that we did a little bit back. This is Daniel Conley. It looks like he started at least one of the. So he must have done them in batches, and I'm not sure. I suspect he did them in order, but it looks like he from Charlie he derived dog, and from dog he derived both easy and jig, and from easy he went to George and Peter. And one of these was when I looked at them earlier. Actually, let's just let's see with the search here. Let's see. So if you look at these, sort of make sense in terms of the. I think it's jig. Where is it here? Jig. Oh yeah, Sugar, is that the one? Yeah. Sugar and Peter, it was very sort of obvious the relationship. So Sugar looks like this, and Peter in turn, oops. Oh, he's got them, it's signal flags dash Peter. Okay, that's what like that. Signal flags dash Peter. Whereas Peter is just its inverse. And so clearly there was just some flipping around of things to get that. So you can kind of, see in hindsight, oh, he was, you know, when he was going through and doing each of these, he wasn't saying, okay, clean the slate and do them each. He's actually reusing his work. Let's see, what else is fun here? We've got, as you can see, a lot of them are very shallow relationships. Somebody does one. Occasionally, there are, actually, here's a big knot. So you get these anonymous ones, they'll oftentimes, you'll have a ton of them all sort of fanned out from one, and it's probably a single individual, but it's hard to say. There's, let's see, what else? Oh yeah, we'll go back. We'll go back to this one. Oh yeah, so that one I can't even read. Yeah, so a lot of these, it's interesting how they're they'll oftentimes be from a single one. Here's this Viroli, I Viroli, and folks produced lots of variations of that one. Let's see if I can. No, it's not an I. Is it an L? Okay, I can't see that one well enough to actually. Anyways, let me not get bogged down on that. Woo. It could have been a capital L. Yeah, that's possible. Now, here's an interesting one. We could actually, let's look at these. Ray tracing 2. So it looks like Monray, which, by the way, one of the things you can do with the search that's been actually kind of neat is you can search by author. It's searching both title and author. Yeah, it searches by, what it does is it first shows the ones that match by title and then by author in series. And so what's great is that, you know, for an author like Monray who's produced a lot of really cool haikus, you get a very interesting cross-section of their work by looking for their names. It's much more interesting, you know, or if you, well, not to toot my own horn, but if you look for mine, at least you get some sense of what I do. But anyways, let's see. Ray tracing. Oops. What is that now? That's weird. I wonder if I got something odd about how I'm handling spaces. Yeah, that's okay. I need to look into that. The search will improve, no doubt. But anyways, this ray tracing 2 appears to be something where he's gotten down. He's definitely using some ray tracing formulas, and he's gotten down sort of the core nucleus of how he wants to do it. But then he decides he wants to change the color scheme. So he does this coffee tracing using a different color scheme. But then he, of course, realizes, wait, I've misspelled coffee. And so you'll see coffee final, realizing that, in fact, oh, coffee is not spelled that way, which is the one that he then, if I'm recalling correctly, he must have nudged up the I like it a number of times because this one made it into some of the top few. So he was, you know, critically making sure that he got both the haiku and the name right. Let's see. But then, of course, there are all these final reduxes and hacked coffee. Okay, now I'm curious. What does hacked coffee look like? Oops. Oh, I think, you know what I think it is? I think there must be something with spaces not working. I'll have to look into why that would be the case. Coffee. I've noticed actually there are a number of these with these hacked ones where somebody has deconstructed them and added noise. So someone felt this was an improvement. In fact, all of these are kind of snowy type whatnot. Anyways, but then the chain kind of continues along, and there's a number of them that actually derive from there. You'll see there's this whole family of Space Invaders ones. Take a look at those. And again, it's a similar kind of an evolution to them. Interestingly, both the Pac-Man and the Space Invaders seem to. Oops, I'm searching on the page instead of. Both the Pac-Man and the Space Invaders one, they've put the titles in all caps for reasons I'm not sure. Okay, interesting. So that one. Okay, it doesn't actually look like this is traced. Well, actually, we can click on Space Invaders here, And does it actually, okay, so here's a place where clearly this was derived from, I don't know if any of you recall, there's actually a lone Space Invader, but apparently it doesn't share enough in common. Oh, there it is. Okay, this one, no, this one actually is just based on the parent. So there's some parent-child relationship here, but apparently there's not enough commonality to pick out the haiku with just the one invader. So this is a place where my thresholding is falling down. Most likely, if I had a looser threshold, I would have been able to pick up that relationship, but of course then what would happen is I get all these false positives. And certainly there are, I would suspect there are false positives here. Now here's an interesting thing. You see this big explosion of disco redux, and the reason is that this disco by Ivan Q this is actually Manuel's son, I believe, and he's in early days he did this one little haiku and was able to pick it up very quickly, and because of that it was the top haiku or one of the top haikus, and so there's a huge number of folks that derived from that haiku because it was one of the first items at the top. So people click on, say, oh, I want to do this, and then click on derived work, and so that's formed the basis for a number of these. And you know, this big tree of stuff. And in a similar way, there's this golden bump, which I believe, oh, that's one of his as well, yeah. And there's a bunch from that. Here's that one that we looked through earlier, the Sierpinski going to XOR texture. But you'll notice there's also these Sierpinski zoom and redux. And then there's the XOR tunnel and XOR tunnel dark. And in fact, oh, there's a hacked XOR tunnel dark. All right, got to find out what does the hacked XOR tunnel dark look like. In there. Oh, there's is it spelled funny? Let's see. Hacked XOR. Okay, definitely got issues with the searcher. I'm not seeing XOR. Oh, there it is. Hacked XOR tunnel. Oh, this is cute. So somebody did some interesting vandalization of the. Can't see it very well on the projector here, but it's the tunnel in sort of snowy red there, zooming along. Yeah, it doesn't need more contrast to see that. Oh, does it? Okay. So, yeah, so it's a sort of a snowy version of the same. The hacked thing seems to be all about adding some noise. And there's that XOR tunnel color. So let's actually go back here. There's an icon that I, when I was making the G4th port to NACL, I was unaware that there was a G4th icon already. So I made a haiku to use for the chromat for it. And here's me working along. And I started with one, and then I made a different one. And notice they're anonymous because I was too lazy to fill out my name each time. And so there's 1, 2, 4, 7, 6, and clearly what I did at various points, and I'm betting that this one, as it's the most deeply derived, is me going back, but then I must have, I'm betting 7 was the final cut. I probably numbered them in order, and when I was happy with it, then that was number 7, but I also, evolved them in different ways, and that actually fits my memory of what I did with that. There was some iteration on it. It's actually, we could look at that one. I was just trying to make up an interesting icon that I thought would look good at different scales. You'll see I had a bunch of different variations on it, and it was basically let's see, which one is 7 here? 7 is I don't think 7 is what I ended up going with. I think I ended up going with one of these, so it must be similar to I started with this sort of little swooshy pattern and then tried various things to manipulate it, and then I finally put a mask around it, because if you do an alpha channel, it's translucent for an icon. That's particularly handy. And in general, I've used the haikus quite a bit to make icons. It's a handy way to get a cheap icon. Let's see what else is in here. Oh yeah, here's an interesting one. There's this light drop, which was one of mine. That's again was for a while on top, and so because they're on top, a ton of people derived from it, including, this one they actually said, Brad Nelson, modified by Monster. So they felt bad just listing their name. They wanted to include name, whereas most of these are just untitled anonymous. Somebody clones it. They've done, little to nothing to it. And let's see what else. We get a bunch of these. This is another big tree of untitled anonymous. Some huge tree of them, various junk. Here's membrane. We can look at that family. That's a big tree. Let's look at the membrane family. Oh, so these are, oh, wow. Membrane short. What was the other? I think they had some other prefix in front of them. Chamomile. Let's look for that. Oops. It's not. Definitely got to work on that search. Anyway, so there's these. Apparently, this is in some way related to this. Not sure I see the relationship offhand. Oh, but the code. Notice the code looks very similar. You zoom in here. While the two don't actually have a lot of visual similarity, the code looks strikingly similar. Just a little bit of a difference down at the bottom, and down at the bottom here, and the animated one there, they added in some use of time as a component, and that was enough to produce that large difference between the two. Let's see. Oh, and here's warp speed. This is my own, but then some folks have created derived works from that. Let's take a look. That's not doing good things. Well, I definitely need to investigate what the story is with the search. And this is, I'm working within the constraints of warp speed. This will teach me to, as I mentioned, I added the search later after I realized, looking at this tree of things, I know what some of these look like, but some of you may not be as familiar. Anyways, so that's the tree. Questions? That's a good thought. Actually, that might be an interesting thing to generate. I think, yeah. The tricky bit is that the software that generates this this graph is this thing called GraphViz, and there is a way to add. I actually learned after having generated this that there is a way to add links that will find their way through. I'm not sure how hard it is to add images. One other issue would be that, and this has been kind of a constant struggle with the haikus, is because my implementation runs in your browser. If I was going to go through and do an offline sweep to render them, I guess I could use Node.js and render them that way. But short of a JavaScript engine, I don't actually have an easy way to render the image in. But it would definitely be neat to see. I think that there you would really sort of see visually interesting things. So that's a good idea. I like it.
Would it be possible in a section below the code or somewhere in the haiku that you're working on, where
yes.
you've got derived words and stuff like that, looks like?
It would certainly be possible. That's a much harder one.
Or trace from. Or
oh, so the
code. I mean, you can say code looks like.
Oh yeah, code looks well. So no, I've added this. Maybe I didn't make that clear earlier. So for example, let's say we click on TV tie here, for instance. Down at the bottom, I now have this based on field where it records the parentage.
So that's showing that hierarchy, even if they don't do it as a derived word.
Yes, it's from the data. So the data that I just showed you in that big graph there is I backpatched the data in the database to add those in. It's very likely that they're slightly wrong, but I figure it's close enough. It's better than not having it. So yeah, so all of the ones where I was able to detect a relationship now are labeled in terms of their ancestry.
You could put that as a question. Was it based on, and then have a yes, no, answer.
Yes, I can certainly have people vote. Of course, I don't have to worry about de-spamming the votes. But
Or the, I don't know. That's right. There's no,
if I had login, it would definitely be something where. But that's one of the troubles is I kind of want to engage my users and have them, do things like that. But it's at the same time, it's like which things are going to be spammy.
Worth it.
Yeah. I have actually, by the way, I've actually had down. You remember I added this this comment comment area down below, and using Disquis, and I've occasionally had people post down there and say, hey, this one's not originally this is based on my thing from here. So. Part of why I finally did add this parentage thing is because some of my users have actually more or less asked for it. They've complained that, hey, I made something cool, and then it wasn't made obvious that this other version of it that became popular was actually derived work.
You could take the sting out by saying it looks like it's based on.
That's true. Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I could do that. I'm inclined to, if they complain, I'll certainly do it. Yeah, I suppose I could say. The one thing I didn't actually do in the data, which now you're making me wonder if that was a mistake, is that I have not actually recorded which ones were submitted with indicating they were based on something versus the ones that I computed. And that's actually probably problematic. I should probably stem the tide and actually start recording which ones were actually submitted. That would be better to have that data.
Yeah, and your users that are complaining, the system can be gamed.
Oh, absolutely.
That all you have to do is make a drive and then drive your own.
Yes.
And you've lost your one.
Yes.
By putting the ancestors, if you somehow did an ancestor chart, you would get the originator.
Yes. I'm definitely, as I mentioned before, tempted to go back and see how much they cheat. To go back and see, if I run this algorithm again and say, this one says it's based on this. Is that really true? I actually wrote the sweep to do that. I haven't had enough people submit anything to really. I've not seen any cheating as yet, but there haven't been a lot of submissions since I added this. So I'll be curious to run it. But what I should definitely do is, as you say, tag them so that I know which ones are. And if I did that, then I can actually selectively do what you propose and say, looks like it's based on. And that's a good thought, actually. I should do that. I was thinking too much in terms of, I've lost this information. How do I recover it? But what I've recovered is only a guess, really. So
It's all just guess.
All right.
How many people have, how many haikus?
How many haikus? I believe, I can find out. I believe the number is in the order of like 1,400. So let me see if I have I may have the data handy, actually. I could tell you exactly. Oops, that's not what I want. Oh no, not this one. That was. Oops. Oh, I must have told. Actually, can I print status? Where did I put this? No, I apologize. I don't have it handy. But yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it's in the order of 1,400. I thought I had it just sitting there, but I think I reshuffled. Yeah, no, it's weird. I think what I'm benefiting from to a large extent is these Russian demo sceners, because they for them it's kind of they also do they target various old systems, and the weird thing about this is it's in this kind of strange space because if you it's getting turned into a GPU shader, and GPU shaders are actually relatively verbose. To give you a sense, I mean, you know, there's actually let me show that. Actually, well, let me not dig that up. Anyways, a friend of mine has actually put together a similar kind of a thing with just a simple C-like language, and they're dramatically more verbose. And so I think it's kind of unappealing to the demo sceners to be dealing with something where, on the one hand, it's a very simple set of ideas of what you can do on the GPU, and at the same time, the conventional way in which it's expressed is incredibly verbose. And so the fourth representation makes it more like the old 8-bit systems they're accustomed to dealing with in terms of the amount of brevity and size of it and such. Yeah, right, exactly. And they compete over size, and so they'll do crazy. When I say size, I mean bytes, and so they'll intentionally pick single-letter definitions to pack down the size.
They redefine do to be deep.
Yes, in fact.
You know, stuff like that.
So
that it takes up less space in the rest of the code.
That's all I got.
There's one. S is swap.
Oh, there it is. That's his swap. They couldn't tolerate the extra bytes from the word swap. So.
Cool. Thank you. Way cool, Brad.
From the artistic side.
I haven't said anything of any consequence anyway. So I bought this used off-lease laptop. It's a W520 ThinkPad. And they built these as workstations, so the W stands for workstation. It has a quad-core i7. Quad-core Intel i7 processor. And it's unlikely to get mired. And I'm unlikely to install Norton antivirus on any computer ever again. i7 laptop is what you buy when you no longer care about battery life.
Well, you're doing that.
I record, complete non sequitur, change the subject. I record from time to time a radio show off the interwebs when I'm not present to actually hear it. It occurs at a scheduled time, so I bought a software program that records scheduled things off the internet. So I downloaded this thing and installed it, and it was all happy. In the process of using it, I realized every time I used it, it sort of phoned home and asked if I was licensed. And I really hate product activation, which Windows started using some time ago. I, in fact, still run a version of Microsoft Office that was the version before they started using product activation on Office. But this is even worse. Every time you use it, it has to phone home and say, is it still good? But they are concerned that, if you're the sort of person that records things off the internet, you're probably the sort of person that steals software and just uses it without paying. So then a while after, it started saying, well, you need to renew it. And I had bought this in a bundle with several programs. And as it turned out, this one program is a subscription. But all of the other things in this bundle were just purchases. Needless to say, I'm not interested in using this particular program anymore. I'll buy a different program from another vendor and be more careful. But it's kind of interesting because it didn't come right out and say, when you buy the bundle, there's all this other stuff, all these other programs, and I'm sure that if I read in detail every scrap of information that was on their website about this one recorder that you could schedule, I would have come to the conclusion, oh, I don't want this stuff because it's going to stop working after some time, and then I'll have to re-up, send them more money to use their program. So there it goes. I did look at the EULA, the end user license agreement for this particular program, and it basically says that I have a license in perpetuity. The language is to that effect. And I pointed this out to the customer service folks, who are pretty responsive to email, which is a good thing. I pointed this out to the customer service lady, and she said, no, that just means it's in perpetuity until we decide to turn it off. And I sent them an email back saying, no, that's really not what that means, unless it's immediately followed by the language in the EULA that says, you have the license forever until we decide to turn it off.
Kevin, it's not what it means. It was good for business. And obviously, they would not have done this because it would have been foolish for them to do this. They must have meant something different. So we'll interpret it to mean whatever they say.
I think they just used the boilerplate EULA from their other products.
Oh, I think I'm just quoting the Supreme Court.
Yes, exactly right. Well, don't get me started. I'm hoping to avoid
1:30.
I'm hoping to avoid discussion of that today. So I enjoy these geek trivia quizzes. And I'm pretty sure we get the answer to that one right there. Any opinions? Yeah, I don't think it was the Aztecs because they didn't actually have wheels at all.
They did not have axles. They had wheels.
Well, I think, did they have wheels for toys, but not for moving stuff?
They did not have axles.
All right. I'm in honor of Ting and Sam. Let's just, oh, darn, it's right. I kind of stacked the deck there. I guessed that correctly a little earlier on. Well,
Wheelbarrow up there?
it's funny you should mention that. I invite you, speaking of new things, I invite you to examine my new platform dolly, which was on sale at Harbor Freight. So I could make this in one trip now. It's funny you should mention that. I had the same discussion about Nikola Tesla, who apparently invented everything. He invented apparently everything that the Chinese didn't invent. And I gather he didn't like pasta, though, but we digress.
I've been reading a very interesting book, Kevin,
Yes.
A People's History of Science, that is fascinating in the sense that most of the inventions came from people that really did it. And all of the scientists were the religious or political or royal elites who could not get their hands dirty, who would not get their hands dirty, and did the theories after it was actually worked out by the miners, the fishermen, the people that did all the work.
Yeah. And these guys took the credit.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Well, the lower classes couldn't read, write. No names were recorded ever. Look at the subtitle.
Miners, midwives, and mechanics. Okay.
Yeah, actually, the wheelbarrows, we have the legend has that there was a general after the Anglican's Jew-Pop, and he actually have recognized the wheelbarrows.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They call it moving cows, running horses. So apparently he was never able to mechanize lots of the transportations.
All right, just for the folks at home. What was the title?
A People's History of Science.
Miners, midwives, and low mechanics. With a K.
Okay.
2 cents more, you can get a new one.
And I found it very interesting.
Do they talk about Michael Faraday? Any chance in there?
It's in there, yeah.
Because, I think it started where he started out as a glass blower. Like,
Yeah.
blowing on protocol, so they worked his way up.
I think it's fine.
That's it, that's what it was. Yeah. It's what? From Harvard.
Right.
Although the third is started like this.
All the lenses and mirrors and stuff was all people just doing it.
Yeah.
And then two of them together, oh wow, look at that.
Started glass.
Hmm.
The needs of golden glass. And then the glass technology, student
Yeah.
What are you showing me? It was very
That was just an ad.
It was an ad before a YouTube video that
fish. Everybody would go to a industry farm to gauge how good industry farm is. They also look at if it has a good glass blower. If it doesn't have a good glass blower, no, it's not that first.
So what's the answer to that one?
I guess we'll, anybody have a guess? As it turns out, Garfield fans, there was a,
Well, that was easy.
they were just using the name for gmail.com for a Garfield and Friends themed email service. So apparently,
I wonder how much that cost Google
Probably not a whole.
to buy the domain name from Garfield.
Nothing. Well, Luke has a scary voice.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mark Hamill.
Well,
Wow.
he doesn't even have a scary voice.
well, apparently he was scary enough when he was doing the Joker.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it depends what you call a planetarium. But the oldest planetarium in the world is located.
No, hey,
Sure,
but you know,
No. I was gonna say Parthenon.
Pantheon, sure.
Parthenon?
No, what's a planetarium?
No, you were right the first time. A planetarium is apparently what you define as the thing that's in the Dutch living room, thus making the answer correct. But I would have said Stonehenge, but that's not a planetarium, clearly.
It has real planets, so it can't be a planetarium.
Tang. Curry is a pretty good Frankenfurter.
Yeah.
The choice that I would have made would have been Coke, but Coke didn't work in space.
Fortunately, Tank's not up
Tank's not up there either.
there. I'm gonna guess a one night later.
All right, I'll say milk just to. Oh. No, I was just flat out guessing at that point.
This one we should get.
It depends who you ask. I was going to say traffic lights because I know that to be true. But as it turns out, according to the folks at the Computer History Museum who came and gave talks about this, I think it was these calculator guys.
Yeah.
Say Omar Brain.
Yeah, you tell 40 go for it.
But before they built these, they were building traffic light controllers. So there.
Who is the manufacturer down there?
Oh, let's see.
Yeah. Yep, okay.
Boy. Who's around to remember those?
The actual guys came to the Computer History Museum. It must have been, what, 3 or 4 years ago, Dave? Maybe longer. You still go to the Computer History Museum talks?
For a while. They had it in the evening. A lot in
Sam should know this.
I'm going to guess first on top.
Ancient, like us.
So, a little known use of Forth from the dark ages of special effects was to move models around for spacecraft. The motion mechanism that moved.
Yes, so could take single frames. 1988.
Was the guy from Lucas?
1988, Novix got a trip up to Lucas and saw the camera on its glide path that was all done by Forth, and I'm blanking on the two guys' names.
Squires?
Scott Squires, right. And there was another, his boss, that was there. But that was,
And it was Novix powered?
no.
It was other.
Other. They were looking at Novix and they got kind of, Scott was really interested, but they got wiped out.
Anybody care to guess? I am completely clueless about game systems.
Fourth generation.
I'm going to guess the laser active because I've at least heard of the other three.
Maybe that's why nobody ever heard of it.
Whoa, that's big.
$1,500. That's right.
Oh, giraffes.
I would have said giraffes because I'm easily amused.
They call giraffes to eat them, but wasps.
Well, actually, I guess there's a different set of plants that get frightened and make their leaves taste bitter when the giraffes are on the way. Go figure.
Yeah.
Isn't nature wonderful?
Yes. I think they probably smell them. That'd be that. Yeah.
Well, just being chewed, the
Oh, right.
right, the pheromone coming off of the chewed leaves. Yeah.
I propose to go to lunch because it's lunchtime.